Well, so their exit from a major tournament for England, 56 years of hurt, continues after their defeat to France in the quarter-final. Paul Robinson is alongside me, and Paul, it's got a different feel about it, though, hasn't it, this time? I mean, they can leave with their heads held high, although, albeit, it is still a quarter-final exit.
Yeah, 56 years, is that how long it is? I mean, that Baddiel and Skinner song when it first came out seems like yesterday.
Making fortunes every 4 years.
How old does that make you feel as well? You know, just keep adding a few years every time they get knocked out. But I mean, yeah, it does feel a little bit different because it was a 50-50 game. They're going head-to-head with the world champions. They've not underperformed. They've not underachieved. They've been knocked out to potentially the winners of this tournament. You know, they'll be one of the favourites now. And I think the way that they've gone through the tournament, there's not a lot the manager would do differently. You look at the way that he set his team up going into this game. I think 80 to 85% of the British public would agree he's probably back four. He's starting 11. The majority of people would have agreed with that. You could look at Sterling, but he's obviously been away from home for personal reasons. Marcus Rashford could have come into that. A couple of people may have had indifferent opinions. I think the only real criticism that you can level at him, again, is his in-game management, which is not something new. But they've gone head-to-head with the world champions, and fine margins again.
Mbappe was obviously the big talking point going into the game, and he was kept largely quiet by Kyle Walker. Maybe that shift in plan for the three in midfield to sit in a kind of a straight three as opposed to two and a one.
Yeah, we spoke about this last week on Friday in the studio with Mark and discussed the way that Henderson would sit and pivot across to the right-hand side, double up with Walker, and the same on the left-hand side with Declan Rice going over to help Luke Shaw, who it would be. And I think they coped with him extremely well. You know, again, like I say, that his team setup, his tactics were right, and I think he's done an excellent job of doing that throughout the tournament.
The thing is, he focused on Mbappe, and it was Griezmann who pulled the strings and, of course, putting that wonder ball for the winner.
Yeah, I did say that on Friday about Griezmann. I think he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. All the focus was on Mbappe. Giroud occupied the two centre-halves, as he does, and obviously got his goal, got the winning goal. But it was Griezmann, the little magician who sat in that number 10 role. And what Giroud does, he stretches the team, occupies the centre-halves, and just creates that great big hole of space for Griezmann. And he's been used as a bit-part player, as a substitute this year at his club. So he came into this tournament fresh, and he looks like one of the players of the tournament.
I mean, you go through the media, and obviously whenever England get knocked out, it's all doom and gloom, and it was obviously for you in 2010 in South Africa. It seems to be a bit mixed, more mixed this time. I mean, I know there's people saying the first big team that they bumped into, they got knocked out. Now, they dispatched Senegal, who are no mugs, and they put six past Iran. Exactly,
African champions. So, that, you know, what do you class as a big team? I think you're probably looking at your big team bracket, Brazil, Argentina, or a European superpower, as in France. But we've beaten Germany. OK, it wasn't the same Germany when they beat them in the Euros. It wasn't the same strength of side. But I think, yeah, they're at a level now where they're competing with France. They're on an equal with France. Granted, France didn't have Pogba, Kante, Benzema. That could have been a very, very different game.
But they did have a £120 million midfielder who scored, and their record all-time goal scorer who scored.
Yeah, so England are coming out of a tournament disappointed, again at the quarter-final stage. But you look at the progression that's been made under Gareth Southgate, and I think he's well within his rights to decide what he wants to do. He's done a good job, a very good job, to put the team where they are now. The big question of him is taking it to the next level, and that's the Euros in 18 months' time. And from the FA's point of view, I'm 1,000,000% sure they'll want to keep him, because you look at the work that he's done, not only with the first team, but the whole FA, the whole setup, the structure that he's put in place, and it's coming to fruition.
I think Gary Neville made a really good point on TV on Saturday night about that. The youth teams are winning World Cups, the women's have gone on and won the Euro. So as a whole, England are in a really good place. And this is a very youthful side as well. There's not too many players who won't be at the next World Cup, you'd imagine, in 3.5 years.
It's a youthful side, but it's also a youthful side with experience. You know, they've had a semi-final of the World Cup, they've had a quarter-final of the World Cup, and they've had the final of the Euros. So back to my generation, 2006, where we were the so-called golden generation, tournament experience wasn't quite there. These players have had that. They've suffered highs, they've suffered lows, they've suffered disappointment, and the experience of a tournament and winning big games and playing on the big stage, which going forward in 18 months' time, OK, you suspect France are going to be the favourites for the Euros, but England won't be far behind them. And this team is maturing with the experience, the quality that they've got. In 18 months' time for that Euros, they could really peak at that point, given, you know, fitness, injuries, etc. into consideration. If Gareth Southgate was to leave now, I think it'd be very, very disappointing, because it would be an overhaul, it would be an upheaval. Who ideally could be shoehorned into the job that he's been done. Maybe he needs a fresh set of eyes and ears on the training ground, a different voice, an addition to his coaching staff. I think his backroom staff are excellent, but an addition to that as well to maybe freshen it up tactically a little bit, for some new voices for the players. But they're not far off. Fine margins, and we could have been sat here talking about England in the semi-finals.
Let's talk about Southgate's future then, because he wasn't very committal straight after the game, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Go home and reflect, and he seems to have done that in the last 36 to 48 hours. And comments this morning that he's not just looking at the last 4 weeks he's had with his players, it's the last 18 months where he's had difficult conditions, and that's what he's taking into account when deciding his future.
Yeah, he looks tired after the World Cup, which is understandable because the work that goes into that. Listen, it's not just chucking a plan together 2 weeks before. This is planned since the last World Cup, since the last Euros. This is a long-term plan that's been in operation for a long time. Very time-consuming. A lot of work goes into it. He's experienced some highs this year, but I think he's probably been his lowest point as England manager as well, after they got booed off at Wolves at Molineux after losing 4-0 to Hungary. And I think that's, in a manager's life, that wasn't that long ago. We've all kind of forgotten about it now because the team's playing really well, they're excelling, and they've been unlucky, they're in a great place. But he's looking at it thinking, well, only 6 months ago, less than, we were really poor against Hungary. The fans had turned on me. They were singing, "You don't know what you're doing," which, I mean, it's harsh on a man that's put England where they are now. But it's a double-edged sword for him, and he's got two ways to look at it. Has he got the passion, the drive, and the enthusiasm to push England along? Which is the biggest question. He's well earned his right to do that, and I'd love to see him stay on and do that if he is passionate and still driven to do that. Which after tournaments, you question yourself, you look at everything, and like anything in life, you make decisions that sometimes you regret, when actually you look how structured he is as a man, as a person. He's gone away. He knows that the decision he makes today probably won't be the same decision as he makes next week. I don't expect a decision on Gareth Southgate's future any time in the next 2 weeks. He's going to go away, take himself away from the game, and I'm sure in the next 2 or 3 weeks he'll have one day where he thinks, yeah, I've had enough. The next, I'm 18 months away from a tournament, I've got these players here, I want to be the one to take it over the line. And only when he gets to that point where he's decided what he wants to do, I'm sure he'll let us all know. And
he has got the players playing for him. It's not always been the case in England setups, but I think to a man, every single one wanted to be there and we're fighting for him.
And it's harmonious. The England camp's harmonious. Whether you're playing, it's easy to keep 11 players happy. I've said this a million times before, because you pick them, you put them on the pitch, that's easy. It's how you manage 23 normally, 25, 26 this time, and his man management skills. And you look at the players that did the press, the media, this World Cup, they weren't always the starting 11 or the starting 13, if you like. There were players who were on the peripheral, on the fringes. Nobody's got a bad word to say about him. There's no bad noises that come out of that dressing room. So from the outside looking in, if he was to ever leave his role, I would love to see, and I think it'd be a very, very sensible move from the FA to put him as head of teams, not technical director, I don't really like that, but head of football operations, and him sit at the top of the tree because of everything that he's put in place, where it was when he first started to where we are now as a nation, football-wise. I think we've improved tenfold. And
he has put in this template, hasn't he? Obviously came from the under-21s and it's filtered through all the way through the youth setup. Right, 2 questions for you then. First, is he still in charge for the Euros?
It's entirely up to him.
Would you like to see him in charge?
I personally would love to see him in charge for the Euros. I'd like to see him in charge for the Euros with a fresh new member of backroom staff. I think the quality of players he's got, like you say, the players on side, fine margins. They're a missed penalty away from beating the world champions. And I think they played well in the game. They went up tactically well against them. So fine margins, we could be sat talking about England in the semi-final against Morocco, that you'd fancy them to win a potential World Cup final. So, if buts and maybes, etc. But yes, I would love to see him in charge. I think he will be.
He will be. And if he wasn't to be, playing devil's advocate, I mean, who's out there? I mean, I know Eddie Howe's been linked with it, but he's got a big job on his hands and doing well at Newcastle.
Yeah, I'd like to see an Englishman. I'm very passionate about that. I mean, I played under Sven and saw Fabio Capello at the time, and he was probably one of, if not the main reason I retired from international football. I think England managers get the national team, get the national job. To be English, to play for England, you've got to be English, and I think that should be the same through the structure. Saying that, you look at who's out there. Do you stretch English to UK and put Brendan Rodgers into the mix? There's a possibility. Eddie Howe. But then you've actually got to be realistic. If Gareth Southgate does step aside, if the quality of English manager isn't there, then you are going to have to look further afield. I think Eddie Howe's too deep in a project at Newcastle. The temptation of the national team job, but Eddie's still young, and I think he's got time in his career where if it's not this time the England manager's job comes up, it could be the next time or the time after that. So then when you look around, you look at young aspiring coaches, do you take a chance or do you have to go for a foreign coach? And then you look at foreign coaches now, Pochettino's out there, Thomas Tuchel's out there, who, if you listen to reports this morning, has already put his hat in the ring. And Jose Mourinho knows the players, knows this country, knows the squad. If you're going to do that, it's almost a case of, right, we're almost there, we just need that winning element. That's somebody who knows how to win games to get us over the line. But all of those I wouldn't see as a long-term employment for an England manager's job. I would see a Euros or a World Cup or both to try and get some silverware.
And they've got plenty to work with, and one name in particular I want to talk to you about is Jude Bellingham, not just because of the way he stood out on the pitch, but off the pitch as well, the way he talks, his press conferences, his interviews, and the fact he was the man who went up to the captain, Harry Kane, after that penalty. I mean, he's 19 years old.
Yeah, impressive, isn't it?
He's incredible.
Impressive on and off the field, and I think this tournament's going to stand him in good stead going forward, the experience. You see what a quality player is, the responsibility that he's taken at that age. Captain Dortmund in the Champions League at 19. Okay, he's not the main captain, but he's been given the responsibility to do that. It tells you a lot about the person. The player, I mean, we can all sit and wax lyrical about him. Football fans now are more educated than they've ever been. It doesn't take me or you to sit here and tell people how good he is. You can see that. You can see it in his performance. But it's his maturity, the way that he handles himself, and his confidence. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. He's an extremely good player with a lot of confidence.
He certainly is. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the World Cup. Now it's over. We move on back to the Premier League now. We are going to have a look at the semi-finals as well. It could have been England in there, but it's not. It is France who are going to take on Morocco. We'll look at that one first, even though it is the second semi-final. And, well, there's very little to choose between them in terms of geographical.
Yeah.
But from what we've seen so far, obviously, in the world stage, there is a gulfing class between France and Morocco. However, they've been a big standout surprise, haven't they, the African side?
They have been a surprise. I mean, you look at their team, you look at their squad before the tournament, and you see there's a lot of quality players in there that play in some of the top leagues in Europe. So actually, when they got out the group and you dissect it, okay, it might not be so much of a surprise. But then you look at it, the way they got past Spain, you look at the way they got past Portugal, you think at some point their bubble's going to burst, but it hasn't done. They found a way, they found a way of getting past teams, and they found a way of winning. Defensively, they're very strong, very hard to break down, and the mentality that they've got. I thought Portugal would blow them away. I really did, because I saw what Portugal did in the last 16 against the Swiss. They put 6 past the Swiss, and I think the way that they played, their interaction with Fernandes, with Felix, with Ramos coming in and getting his hat-trick, I just thought if they got an early goal against this Moroccan team, they could fold, because they don't really have a plan B to open up. But I mean, again, they surprised us, and said to you off camera, I said, you look at all 4 quarter-finals, I think if you backed England patriotically, I think we've probably got 3 out of the 4 wrong, and Morocco have been the big surprise again. Yeah,
they certainly have. And I'll tell you what, we're talking about Mbappe and Walker. He's playing against his teammate and the standout player, Hakimi. Hakimi versus Mbappe. I mean, what a clash that is.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people would have stood up and put Hakimi as one of the best players of the World Cup before this has started. But I think his defensive capabilities, his engine going forward, I think he's going to cause France problems that way, because what Mbappe gives France going that way, there's sometimes holes that are left in behind him because he's not going to track back.
Well, he didn't. He let Walker go a couple of times.
He let Walker go, and you're looking at Hernandez behind him. You question sometimes his defensive capability.
Well, Saka had him all over, didn't he?
Saka was, yeah. So there's an opportunity there that you can make a case for the Moroccans. I think France will be too strong for them, but said that in the quarter-finals.
They know they've had a game, France, as well, haven't they? They come off a right humding. I mean, in large parts, England outplayed them, but you think with all the players that they've got in the French league as well, the Moroccans, they'd know plenty more about them.
They will know a lot about each other. I mean, you look at just the World Cup. If you haven't seen much of Morocco before, the French team will have studied them, look the way they play. The thing about them is they don't make many changes to the team. They play in a pretty stringent 4-3-3. Out of the ball, one of the midfielders, Amrabat, sits and protects the back 4. You know what you're going to get. It's just dealing with it and finding the way to break them down, because what you have to do against them is move the ball quick and don't allow them to set in their positions. Defensively strong, but they've shown they're capable going forwards.
France in the final, though, for the second successive time?
I mean, like I said to you, 3 out of the 4 quarters, I think the majority of us got it wrong. We've seen so many shocks in this World Cup. There's going to be value in Morocco, obviously. I mean, you look at the Croatians in the betting against Brazil. I mean, I sat here on Friday and said to Mark, I said 7-1 in a 2-horse race. And he was like, there were strong favourites. And I think Morocco, again, you're going to get value. I wouldn't back against France, but I think there'll be value in Morocco.
Value in Morocco, then we wouldn't bet against France. Could it be a France-Croatia final for the second time in 4 years. Obviously, Croatia, they're taking Argentina, and I think there'll be many people donning Croatian shirts after the Argentina antics against Holland, will there?
Yeah, it turned into a bit of a shower, really, didn't it?
You?
I think, well, we've not touched on it, but I think the referee selections, let's say, for those games wasn't ideal.
No.
The referee who refereed the England game was appalling, and the referee in the Argentina-Holland game was appalling as well. I mean, I know it's Christmas, but he's chucking cards out all over the place. And some of the bets, I mean, it's difficult to get value in a team winning, but if you'd a bet against a certain booking points, there's, the referees are reffing in a different way. Players are going to be suspended, players are going to be towing the line. So there's value to be had in the bookings. But yeah, Argentina, they found a way. They keep finding a way.
They got beat by Saudi Arabia, then the draw just opened up, didn't it?
But that's once in 40. In 40 games.
They keep finding a way to get it done.
You look at Argentina's record coming into this tournament, 30-odd games unbeaten, one blip against Saudi Arabia, and now still unbeaten. So you compile that run together, it's 40-odd games where they're unbeaten. So going now, you look at them and you just think, yeah, you look at the squad defensively, I think they can be got at, like we saw with the Dutch.
Well, 2-0 up, 50 minutes to go, and they didn't manage to shut the game out.
It's one of the most frustrating things for me, watching these quarterfinals. So Van Gaal's 2-0 down. What does he do? Puts Weghorst on, goes back to route one, puts the ball long, plays very direct, gets the 2 goals. I mean, the second goal was brilliant.
Yeah.
That free kick from Berghuis into Weghorst. The last kick of the game, if that had gone wrong, there could have been a lot of trouble for the Dutch, but it was brilliant. I mean, the way they got back into the game, got to extra time. What does he do? Revert back to what they played when they were 2-0 down. Start playing and trying to pass the ball. They had Argentina on the ropes. They were pumping the ball long, putting it in the box, creating chances, scored 2 goals, got back in the game, and then got sat back in the box and didn't play to what they'd caused Argentina problems, which was frustrating. I can't see the Croatians lumping the ball in the box against Argentina. I think it'll be a bit more of a chess match.
We said Argentina keep finding a way of getting it done. The same could be labelled at Croatia. Incredible, right?
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, I didn't have them to win the game against Brazil. I don't think many people did. I think you look at the last 16 game, they'd gone to extra time, they'd gone to penalties, and this was a team that had only been changed by 1 or 2 players. Palisic, Vlasic come in for Kramaric. They're the only kind of 2 or 3 alterations the manager's made. It's pretty much been the same starting 11 through the tournament, but they do find a way. Modric, Brozovic, Kovacic. I was worried about them against the Brazilians because they're not going to want to go backwards. They want to go forwards. But I thought they were excellent. I mean, as much as Brazil underwhelmed again, you've got to give the Croats a lot of credit. I mean, I like many other people, sat there after the Brazil game and kind of a bit deflated. It's, Brazil have gone. And I think the way that they've gone, the way that they've left the tournament, they were poor. Obviously, with the manager now resigning.
Yeah, certainly, yeah, TT has left. That's the thing that kind of concerned me or annoyed me about England going out, is they have been consistent. A lot of these teams have been very, very inconsistent. Right, who comes through this one? Argentina, Croatia.
This is a game of the 2 juggernauts who know how to get a job done. Croatia always seem to be there. They always seem to get there. I think Argentina have got that little bit of quality, obviously, with Messi, Alvarez, Martinez. He doesn't play Alvarez and Martinez together. It seems to be one or the other. This is going to be a really tight call. I mean, they've both gone to penalties in the last game, and I can see this going all the way. This is a toss of a coin on the penalties. I'm going to sit on the fence, but I think the good bet is, I said to Mark last time, I think there's a really good bet. If you think a game is going to penalties, back both teams to win on penalties. You're going to get 7 or 8 to 1, and at least you're going to get some return for your money, and you're going to be sat there happy watching penalties, whoever wins. This is going to penalties. Pick your winner.
Going to penalties, but I'm not letting him sit on the fence. I'm going to get those splinters out your backside. I want your 2 finalists, and I want your World Cup winner at this stage.
Argentina to go through on penalties. France to go through in normal time. France to win the World Cup.
There we are. You heard it here first. The first team then to retain the World Cup since Brazil in 1962. It could be France. They've dodged a big bullet in England. Paul thinks they could go all the way. 4 games, 4 teams left. And on Sunday, we will crown the 2022 World Cup winner.